Before I read to you the teachings of Bodhidharma, I want to review some of the basic precepts of Zen. The word Zen is Japanese for the Chinese Chan, which comes from the Sanskrit dhyana. Dhyana is commonly translated as meditation. The Encyclopedia of Eastern Philosophy and Religion says it refers to collectedness of mind or meditative absorption. This tells me of bringing all the components of the mind together in a very centered yang sphere. And that yang sphere does not allow us to contain anything that is not yang in that sphere. In the wide expanse of the spheres of the causal body, we have the balance of the yin force. But in the center, there is that collectedness of mind, all that is worth having and saving, which we would say, yes, this I identify as the Buddhic nature of my being. This shall be established in my core, in the very center of my threefold flame, and the very center of the Atman, alive within my breast. Yes, this core I will gather, I will pull together, I will not be without knowledge, I will not be without awareness. And this core will then be the focal point of enlightenment, the enlightenment of the Buddha that I seek. Meditative absorption going within. Scholar Kenneth Chun describes Zen as an intuitive method of spiritual training aimed at the discovery of a reality in the innermost recesses of the soul. I was talking to someone who said, I don't know who I am. Actually, this is a very profound point of beginning, because it acknowledges I am not the human being. I am not someone identified by a name or a number, a social security number or any other number. Who am I? I am the son, the daughter of my parents. I have a name and I have a tradition. But really, who am I? The statement, I don't know who I am, is actually a statement of the beginning of wisdom. Ask yourself the question, who am I? And see what you can come up with that is of enduring being. What part of you, if you were to be distilled, what part of you would be left when everything else evaporated? And then, how would you identify yourself? Would you know who you were then? Perhaps you would begin to know the essence of self. The essence of self. And so Zen, again, is described as an intuitive method of spiritual training aimed at the discovery of a reality in the innermost recesses of the soul. Chun says, this reality is the fundamental unity which pervades all the differences and particulars of the world. This reality is called the mind, or the Buddha nature, that is present in all sentient beings. We have the Buddha nature, but have we distilled it? Have we gone after it? Have we meditated upon it, or given a simple mantra in contemplation of it? Those of us who are from the West and the traditions of Western civilization are not trained in the yangness of the concentration of the mind, and then the transcendence of the mind to the Buddha mind. And our diet, and our TV, and the kinds of things we consider recreation and entertainment, except sports of skill and focus that require that Buddha mind to achieve, except for those, we find that it's so easy for the bubbles of self to just go off into eternal space. No concentration of identity here in the heart. The guarding of the heart, the book Heart, dictated to Helena Rourke, it's very important to study the nature of the heart as the center of your universe. Zen teaches that this reality is shunya, shunya, meaning empty or void, inexpressible in words and inconceivable in thought. To illustrate this, the Zen masters often resorted to silence or negation to express the truth. Being inexpressible and inconceivable, this reality, or the Buddha nature, can only be apprehended by intuition directly, completely, and instantly. Write down those 3 words: directly, completely, and instantly. Then try to think of how many times in your life, all the way to being a small child, you had an instant perception of someone or something, direct, complete, a complete thought form before you, like a flash, never went through the brain, the reasoning, the rational mind. Cultivate this. Empty the mind. Be ready for the direct transfusion from the mind of Buddha to your Buddha nature. Chun says, in order to apprehend the Buddha nature, one must calm the mind. What agitates the mind? I believe what agitates the mind is fear, anxiety. Anxiety is an agitation that is acidic. It plagues the heart, it plagues the being, it plagues one's life. It makes people indecisive. You have to make your peace with fear and every calamity that can come upon you throughout the world, throughout your lifetime. Make your peace with the calmness of the Buddhic nature and know that because you have embraced the will of God, God will sustain you. You will be tempted by fearsome odds of demons and fallen ones, just like Gautama Buddha, as you have learned about Siddhartha. Just know that if you fear nothing, nothing can move you. If God is there, and He is, there is nothing to fear. When the Zen follower apprehends the Buddha nature within himself, he experiences an awakening or enlightenment called Wu in Chinese or Satori in Japanese. It is an awareness of the undifferentiated unity of all existence. Undifferentiated unity of all existence. That is the awareness we seek. In the state of awakening, when the mind is calm and tranquil, when the conscious self is eliminated, the mysterious inner mind takes over, and the actor performs his action automatically and spontaneously. Such a state of awakening can be repeated many times. You can be awakened today and every day, new awakenings upon awakenings. Author Edward Rice says that the goal of Zen is to induce the direct mystical experience of reality, that is, to reveal the Buddha within through a nurturing of the inner experience. Nurturing. We must nurture ourselves. If we have not been nurtured by our parents spiritually, then we become our own parent through our Holy Christ self. We nurture our soul. We nurture ourselves. We give ourselves the nourishment that is required, the spiritual nourishment to have the experience of God dwelling in us. Christmas Humphreys describes Zen as the act of discovering oneself. And when you go through this, you go through the not-self, all of the things that you've always thought you were and are. And then, after you get through all those outer rings and the electronic belt, you start recognizing this tremendous reality and the components of the reality that I have mentioned. In fact, every cell in your body is an ampule of light of your God reality. If you could see those cells, you would see the mirror image of your Buddha nature in every cell. G.T. Suzuki says that while Zen professes to be the spirit of Buddhism, in fact it is the spirit of all religions and philosophies. How do we awaken to our inner reality and discover our real self? Zen teaches that we have to pass beyond the intellect, writes Humphreys. And oh, what a relief that is, not to be trapped by the intellect. It is such a relief. I have offered to various individuals who I have seen as being trapped, literally trapped in their intellect. I have said, I have the key to unlock your intellect and the soul, the part of you that is a prisoner of your intellect. Let me help you. People believe that the intellect is the capstone of the pyramid of themselves, when in fact it is the anti-self and the anti-Buddha. The process of Zen is a leap from thinking to knowing. When we think, we are reasoning. We are rational creatures. But suddenly we enter the state of knowing, and we're absolutely positive by vibration, by the moment, by our sudden communion with light, that our knowing is accurate, and that we have not gained that knowing through the intellect. It is a leap from second hand to direct experience. Dr. David C. Yu explains that suspicion of words was characteristic of Zen. Ma Ju, an 8th century master, stressed nonverbal communication in order to help students gain the insight that leads to enlightenment. Once a disciple asked him about the essence of Buddhism. Ma Ju responded by giving him a box on the ear. The nonverbal method is a reminder that logical or philosophical scrutiny, which emphasizes the use of words, is an obstacle to reality. At the same time, as we will see in our teaching, words come out of the word in the beginning, and they are a means to reality. It depends where we are on the path. One of the methods Zen uses to enable the student to get beyond the human reasoning mind is the koan. Koan, spelled K-O-A-N. Rice says the koan is a verbal jolt, an enigma or puzzle that forces the student's mind outside normal thought processes in order to gain instant enlightenment. An example of a koan is, what is the sound of one hand clapping? Chun says the koan is meant to stimulate the student to the realization that logic, reason, and conceptualization are stumbling blocks to his awakening, and to induce him to resort to resources other than logic and reason. Zen's encouragement to bypass the intellect does not, however, exclude an initial study of the scriptures. Thich Thien An explains that for Zen, the scriptures are not the truth, but only guides to the truth. But once we know the direction, we have to leave the scriptures behind and experience the truth for ourselves. We cannot skip the scriptures, all of the scriptures at East and West. They are a cosmic alphabet, and with that alphabet, we create words that have meaning to our soul. And by that great cosmic alphabet of all the teachings of all ages, we find our way back. The scriptures are no substitute for our own experience. They are of value insofar as they give us a notion of what the truth is like and of where it is to be found. In Zen Buddhism, experience counts for everything. Experience counts for everything. Another method Zen uses to help us awaken to our inner reality is concentration on daily acts of living. Sokean says, To Bodhidharma, every act from morning to evening was religion. Swallowing water, eating food, sleeping, tending shop, talking to one's neighbors. Action was his way of practice. It is true. There is no practice of religion without action. He who truly attains awakening knows that deliverance is to be found right where he is. There is no need to retire to the mountain cave. If he is a fisherman, he becomes a real fisherman. If he is a butcher, he becomes a real butcher. The farmer becomes a real farmer, and the merchant a real merchant. What is the real farmer, merchant, butcher, etc.? It is one who lives his daily life in awakened awareness. Once he was a butcher, now he is a real butcher because he has awakened awareness. His every act from morning to evening is his religion. We tend to forget this, don't we? Do you notice how one you are with God in meditation, on teachings, or through decrees? And how easily the untransmuted psychology, the untransmuted momentums of karma, the burdens we carry in our organs that are not yet healed, and so forth, and all of a sudden, the sharp word, the criticism, the belittlement, the unkindness, and so forth. That is why it is not easy to have a religion that we practice continually in everything we do. That is why we should follow Bodhidharma. Zen masters teach that whatever we do, we should do it with full concentration, unencumbered by distractions, misconceptions, worries, daydreams, and all other extracurricular mental activities. Do what you do with focus. And I might add, decide not to do those things that are really not leading you to your goal. Put aside all those things. If you're going to give focus and concentration and dedication and endow with love and a fiery spirit a certain action you are doing, then do it. But don't have 1,000 other actions that are simply not leading you anywhere. Take up all of that putting in of your vital energy. The Zen master Yun Mun encapsulates this view in a simple maxim. In walking, just walk. In sitting, just sit. Above all, don't wobble. When do we wobble? We wobble when we're too yin. Too yin, then we wobble. The Zen master, Taisen Deshimaru, expressed the Zen ideal of living every moment and every movement fully when he said, "You must concentrate upon and consecrate yourself wholly to each day, as though a fire were raging in your hair. Get up and do something useful. Useful to who? To yourself, to your real being, to your neighbors, to your friends, to your planet, to your God." The Zen master Ha Queen enjoined, "Get up and do something useful. The work is part of the koan." The work is part of the koan. In other words, the puzzle of life is solved by living. In the spirit of Zen, wrote Deshimaru, every day life becomes the contest. Who will win in life? Will you win and be the conqueror, or will you be the defeated? Will you let yourself be defeated by life, by karma, by circumstance, by the consequences of a wrong decision you made 20 years ago, and you still allow yourself to suffer from it? Every day life becomes the contest. You conquer life, or life will conquer you. There must be awareness at every moment. Getting up in the morning, working, eating, going to bed. That is the place for mastery of the self. I'm going to be taking up Bodhidharma's teachings from the book, The Zen Teaching of Bodhidharma. The first reading from Bodhidharma's teachings is called The Outline of Practice. The Outline of Practice. It gives 4 habits that lead to enlightenment. The translator has included endnotes that give definitions of terms and some explanation. It is good to read these definitions of terms at the end of the translation by Red Pine, just to brush up on all of the Buddhist terms that we've heard over the years and make sure that we know the meaning of those terms. So I will be reading some of these notes where they apply. So Bodhidharma teaches, many roads lead to the path, but basically there are but 2, reason and practice. Write down those 2 words, reason and practice. To enter by reason means to realize the essence through instruction and to believe that all living things share in the same true nature. This true nature is not apparent because it is shrouded by sensation and delusion. What covers over our true nature? Sensation and delusion. Those who turn from delusion back to reality, who meditate on walls, the absence of self and other, the oneness of mortal and sage, and who remain unmoved even by scriptures, are in complete and unspoken agreement with reason. I'll give you that again. Those who turn from delusion back to reality, those who meditate on walls, those who meditate on the absence of self and other, those who meditate on the oneness of mortal and sage, those who remain unmoved by scriptures are in complete and unspoken agreement with reason. Without moving, without effort, they enter, we say, by reason. To enter by practice refers to 4 all-inclusive practices. The first practice is suffering injustice. Suffering injustice. This is an essential ingredient to the disciple entering the path. The second practice is adapting to conditions or karma. The third practice, seeking nothing and practicing the Dharma. Seeking nothing is 3 and practicing the Dharma is 4. The translator, Red Pine, notes that these 4 practices are a variation of the 4 noble truths taught by Gautama Buddha. 1. Life is suffering. 2. The cause of this suffering is desire or craving. 3. Suffering will cease when the craving that causes it is forsaken and overcome. 4. The way to this liberation is through living the Noble Eightfold Path, or the Middle Path, which consists of 8 points, as you know. The first is right understanding, or right views. The second is right aspiration, or right thought, or right resolve. The third is right speech. The fourth is right action, or right conduct. The fifth is right livelihood. The sixth is right effort. The seventh is right mindfulness. And 8 is right concentration, or right absorption. Bodhidharma goes on to explain each of the 4 practices. First, suffering injustice. When those who search for the path encounter adversity, they should think to themselves, in countless ages gone by, I have turned from the essential to the trivial, and wandered through all manner of existence, often angry without cause, and guilty of numberless transgressions. Now, though I do no wrong, I am punished by my past. Neither gods nor men can foresee when an evil deed will bear its fruit. I accept it with an open heart and without complaint of injustice. This truly is a mature approach to entering the path. Instead of saying, "Why me? Why does this calamity happen to me?" we take the responsibility for our own past injustices, and therefore we bear injustices that are done unto us, individually, collectively, as a community, and as a community of all devotees of the Buddha worldwide. The sutras, which are the discourses of the Buddha, say, "When you meet with adversity, do not be upset, because it makes sense. With such understanding, you are in harmony with reason, and by suffering injustice, you enter the path. If you are not willing to suffer the burdens of your injustices returned to you today from thousands of years ago, you are not mature enough to enter the path." The second practice is adapting to conditions, to the conditions of one's karma. Bodhidharma says, "As mortals, we are ruled by conditions." Think of your life. Suddenly this happens. Suddenly another thing happens. People are born. People die. Accidents happen. Changes in situations. We are ruled by conditions, not by ourselves. All the suffering and joy we experience depend on conditions. If we should be blessed by some great reward, such as fame or fortune, it is the fruit of a seed planted by us in the past. When conditions change, when the force of karma is exhausted, it ends. Why delight in its existence? But while success and failure depend on conditions, the mind or the spirit of the individual neither waxes nor wanes. Those who remain unmoved by the wind of joy silently follow the path. We appreciate joy, we give gratitude for it, but we are unmoved by the wind of joy. The third practice is seeking nothing. Bodhidharma says, "People of this world are deluded. They are always longing for something, always, in a word, seeking." That's what the scriptures say. Ever learning, but never able to come to the knowledge of the truth. The wise wake up. They choose reason over custom. Don't be the slave of custom. Choose reason. Don't be a follower of mediocrity. Be one of excellence who gathers followers. They fix their minds on the sublime and let their bodies change with the seasons. All phenomena are empty. They contain nothing worth desiring. Calamity forever alternates with prosperity. To dwell in the three realms is to dwell in a burning house. Red Pine explains that the three realms are first the realm of desire, which includes the hells, the four continents of the human and animal world, and the 6 heavens of pleasure. The second realm is the realm of form, which includes the 4 heavens of meditation. The third realm is the formless realm of pure spirit. Bodhidharma says, "To have a body is to suffer. Does anyone with a body know peace? Those who understand this detach themselves from all that exists and stop imagining or seeking anything." The sutras say, "To seek is to suffer. To seek nothing is bliss. When you seek nothing, you are on the path."
You're watching Elizabeth Clare Prophet, world-renowned author and founder of Summit University. Summit University is located at the beautiful Royal Teton Ranch in Park County, Montana, just north of Yellowstone National Park. If you'd like more information, call 1-800-245-5445. That's 1-800-245-5445.
The fourth practice is practicing the Dharma. Red Pine notes, the Sanskrit word dharma comes from dri, meaning to hold, and refers to anything held to be real, whether in a provisional or in an ultimate sense. Hence the word can mean thing, teaching, or reality. Bodhidharma says, "The Dharma is the truth, that all natures are pure." The Dharma is the truth, that all natures are pure. By this truth, all appearances are empty. Defilement and attachment, subject and object, do not exist. The sutras say, the Dharma includes no being because it is free from the impurity of being. And the Dharma includes no self because it is free from the impurity of self. Those wise enough to believe and understand this truth are bound to practice according to the Dharma. And since that which is real includes nothing worth begrudging, that which is real includes nothing worth begrudging, they give their body, life, and property in charity without regret, without the vanity of giver, gift, or recipient, and without bias or attachment. And to eliminate impurity, they teach others, but without becoming attached to form. Thus, through their own practice, they are able to help others and glorify the way of enlightenment. And as with charity, they also practice the other virtues. But while practicing the 6 virtues, to eliminate delusion, they practice nothing at all. This is what is meant by practicing the Dharma. That is the end of the quote by Bodhidharma. It bears reading and rereading until you have that instantaneous and complete revelation outside of the human mind. The 6 virtues are the paramitas, charity, the giving of oneself by love, by compassion, charity, morality, keeping the codes that the Brotherhood have set forth in all the world's major religions, morality, the ruler of morality, keeping that way straight, patience with oneself and others, with God, not demanding that things happen before their appointed time. Devotion to God, devotion to people, devotion to the Buddha in all whom you meet. Meditation and wisdom. Red Pine says, all 6 must be practiced with detachment from the concepts of actor, action, and beneficiary. We don't think about the fact that we are the actor, we are taking an action, and someone is benefiting from our action. It's a cause-effect sequence that we don't engage in. We do all things with detachment. We do all things for the glory of the Buddha nature in all sentient beings. This is the conclusion of that which introduces 3 key sermons of Bodhidharma. From the Zen teaching of Bodhidharma, we take up his sermon entitled The Bloodstream Sermon. This title can also be translated as Bodhidharma's Sermon on Interconnectedness. Most scholars agree that the first teaching I read to you, the outline of practice, is a genuine teaching of Bodhidharma. The other 3 sermons I will be reviewing from the Zen teaching of Bodhidharma have long been attributed to Bodhidharma, but some scholars claim they are the teaching of later disciples. I see no reason why we should not accept these 3 sermons as his own, since they have been revered as such for many centuries. Throughout the Bloodstream Sermon, the translator, Red Pine, translates the Chinese word Xin as mind. Other translators do the same, but the actual Chinese character represents the heart. In Chinese Buddhism, Shin can be interpreted as mind, heart, or spirit. Buddhists see the heart as the seat of thought and intelligence. So wherever you hear the word mind in this sermon, you can also think of it as heart or spirit. I will be quoting and commenting on the pivotal passages of the Bloodstream sermon that give the essence of Bodhidharma's message. I'm sure you would like to read the whole thing in its entirety. The first section of teaching is on the concept that the mind is the Buddha. Not that the mind gets the Buddha, but that the mind is the Buddha. Bodhidharma begins his Bloodstream sermon with these words: everything that appears in the three realms comes from the mind. Hence, Buddhas of the past and future teach mind to mind without bothering about definitions. Red Pine says, the absence of definitions in the transmission of the Dharma is a touchstone of Zen Buddhism. It does not necessarily mean without words, but rather without restrictions as to the mode of transmission. In other words, a gesture is as good as a discourse. Bodhidharma continues, through endless kalpas or eons, without beginning, whatever you do, wherever you are, that is your real mind. That is your real Buddha. Beyond this mind, you will never find another Buddha. To search for enlightenment or nirvana beyond this mind is impossible. When you think of the mindlessness that we observe, we cannot know, we only observe it, of those afflicted with the disease of Alzheimer's, we must say to ourselves, this individual is not functioning in his right mind. Then we begin to ask ourselves, well, what then is the definition of mind? There is the mind of God, of the I Am Presence, the mind of Christ. There is the mind of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. There is our human mind, that may be a state of mind that is very limited and also soiled with the soilings of this world. Levels of the mind. Whatever mind you have right now, that is the vessel whereby you can identify the Buddha and identify yourself as the Buddha. So only that which you can see and comprehend and understand with your mind is the portion of the Buddha that you can realize. In Buddhism, nirvana is the state of cessation of suffering, freedom from karma, and union with ultimate reality. Union with ultimate reality. Bodhidharma says, the reality of your own self-nature, the absence of cause and effect, is what is meant by mind, your own self-nature. We must begin where we are with the mind that we have, and then transform that mind by that transformation through the mind of God. Bodhidharma says your mind is nirvana. You might think you can find a Buddha or enlightenment somewhere beyond the mind, but such a place does not exist. It does not exist for you because you cannot find it. It is beyond your mind. You can only know what the mind can contain. Trying to find a Buddha or enlightenment is like trying to grab space, says Bodhidharma. Space has a name, but no form. It is not something you can pick up or put down, and you certainly cannot grab it. The mind is the Buddha, and the Buddha is the mind. Such is your conception of the Buddha, such is your manifestation of the Buddha. Beyond the mind there is no Buddha, and beyond the Buddha there is no mind. These are like Zen koans. I think what Bodhidharma is telling us is that the only legitimate mind is the Buddha. If your mind is not the Buddha, it is not a legitimate mind. Bodhidharma continues, if you use your mind to look for a Buddha, you will not see the Buddha. How can you see the Buddha if you do not know what the Buddha is or looks like, because you are still in the process of looking for him? That is why you will not see the Buddha. As long as you look for a Buddha somewhere else, you will never see that your own mind is the Buddha. The sutras say people should realize that the Buddha nature is something they have always had. So when the Brotherhood, when Jesus, when Saint Germain say to us, you have the mind of God, they are speaking of an endowment that we have had from the beginning, when we were created out of the white sphere, the white fire core that was the birth of our twin flames. From that moment, we have always had the mind of God. At this age of darkness on planet Earth, which we hope will become an age of enlightenment in the age of Aquarius, we can comprehend just how much we have lost, and all those who ever had the mind of God have lost in the understanding of just that knowledge that each one has the mind of God, that you have it right now. And the only problem is that you do not exercise that mind as the mind of God, but you use the human mind, the brain, and the intellect, perhaps thinking that is the mind of God, or thinking that that is the ceiling of your having the mindfulness of the mind of God. So this is what the sutras say. The Buddha nature is something they have always had. This nature is the same as the mind of all Buddhas. This is saying that we have the basic equipment. We all have it. If one is endowed with a mind of Buddha, then all are endowed with a mind of Buddha. What we have done with that mind, that is another question. It's like saying all men are created equal, but from the day after creation, there was no equality, because each one exercises his free will to enhance or to degrade that which he is made of. Beyond this mind, there is no Buddha anywhere. There is no Buddha anywhere because the mind cannot conceive it outside of itself. Therefore, we have to establish the wondrous discipline, the love, the wisdom, the power, the attributes of God in the mind of God that we have, so that through that mind we can ultimately comprehend the mind of all Buddhas. But deluded people do not realize that their own mind is the Buddha. They keep searching outside. They never stop invoking Buddhas or worshiping Buddhas and wondering, where is the Buddha? They cannot find the Buddha except within themselves. Bodhidharma says, do not indulge in such illusions. Just know your mind. This is the great teaching that you can extract from the Sacred Heart of Jesus, from Mighty Victory, from all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. You can gain awareness of the mind of God within you, and that mind of God being the receptacle of all Buddhas, and all Buddhas being the receptacle of it. I am certain that there are singular truths that have come to you in this 8-week course and our conference. Please write them down, put boxes around them, read them again and again. Know your mind. Accomplish that in this life. You will know all facets of your mind, and you will also come to know the mind of Buddha. Even if a Buddha or Bodhisattva should suddenly appear before you, Bodhidharma says, there is no need for reverence. To find a Buddha, you have to see your nature. Whoever sees his nature is a Buddha. So here Bodhidharma gives a definition of your personal Buddhahood. Whoever sees his nature is a Buddha. We must see all levels of our nature. We must cast into the violet flame the elements of that nature that are fraudulent, that are counterfeits, that are accommodations, that are egoistic meanderings. We must know the mind so that we can intensify the fire of the mind, the zen of the mind, the lightning of the mind, and know that the rest goes into the fire. If you do not see your nature, then invoking Buddhas, reciting sutras, making offerings, and keeping precepts are all useless. Invoking Buddhas results in good karma. Reciting sutras results in good memory. Keeping precepts results in a good rebirth. And making offerings results in future blessings. But no Buddha. All these things are not enough to become the Buddha, to realize the Buddha, to realize that the Buddha is real in me. That is the theme of this sermon. Bodhidharma's teaching that the mind is the Buddha is akin to the famous Zen saying, "If you should meet the Buddha, kill the Buddha. If you should meet the patriarchs, kill the patriarchs. If you should meet the arhats on your way, kill them too." An arhat is a saint who has attained enlightenment. If you should meet the Buddha, kill the Buddha, is a warning that you should never seek the Buddha outside of yourself. It is a useless search. It postpones the day of your realizing your own Buddhahood. And in that Buddhahood, then and only then can you know the Buddhas of all time and space. This, should you meet the Buddha, kill the Buddha, is a warning against idolatry. It is idolatry to worship a being outside of yourself when you deny that that reality is also inside of you. You can be an empty and a hollow shell, seeking after Buddhas, but never coming to the realization of the Buddha. Killing the Buddha means killing your concepts about what a Buddha is and who a Buddha is. One of Japan's most respected Zen masters, Zen-kei Shibayama, says, "To kill the Buddha is to transcend names, and ideas." Transcending names and ideas is the starting point of Zen. There is a Zen anecdote about a Japanese master who once received a professor who came to inquire about Zen. The master served tea. He poured his visitor's cup full and then kept on pouring. The professor watched the overflow until he no longer could restrain himself. Finally, he blurted out, "It is overfull. No more will go in." The master turned to him and said, "Like this cup, you are full of your own opinions. You are full of your own opinions and speculations. How can I show you Zen unless you first empty your cup? You may have many opinions and speculations as to what you believe Gautama Buddha to be and to be like. What would it be like to talk with him, to be on a co-equal basis with him? You really do not know. You do not know until you become the Buddha. Then the reverence is for the Buddha within yourself and the Buddha within Gautama. Philip Kapleau explains that killing the Buddha means eradicating from the mind the notion of a Buddha as opposed to an ordinary being. He says, it is ridding oneself of the idea that Shakyamuni Buddha is God or a super being. It is obliterating the subtle pride which arises from awakening and leads one to think, now I am a Buddha. Therefore, to kill the Buddha is to kill your dualistic view of life, duality. Duality is a concept of you and me, of this and that, of light and darkness, of Buddha and anti-Buddha. Dualism makes you see yourself and other beings as separate from the Buddha. And it makes you see yourself as separate from other beings. When you are separate from other beings, then you can be proud and you can say, I am better than he, I am better than she, and so forth. The embracing of the Buddha within is the only way that you will come to the realization that when you meet the Buddha in the way, it will not be necessary for you to kill him because you have already realized him, and therefore there is no need to kill that Buddha whom you worship as an idol rather than understanding the gift of divine selfhood as one in all. There is no question about it. This is a book that you take up and read passages, and again you achieve points of enlightenment. One of the greatest Chinese Zen masters, Huangbo, explains, in people's anxiety to seek enlightenment on the one hand, and to escape from the passions and ignorance of corporeal existence on the other, they conceive of an enlightened Buddha and unenlightened sentient beings as separate entities. But we are one. We are one. God never said you have the minds of God, plural. He said you have the mind of God. Thus we must stop all of our rivalries and our bickering and recognize that if we jointly have the mind of God, we must make peace with the Buddha nature within ourselves, and we must be willing to share that mind of God. If you do not have the Buddha ensconced in your mind, if you have not developed the Buddha nature or the mind of Buddha, then when you meet the Buddha in the way, you cannot know that he is the Buddha. Therefore, kill the Buddha until you have self-realized the Buddha. Then the Buddha within you cannot be killed and will never die. Huangbo, he states, in people's anxiety to seek enlightenment on the one hand, and to escape from the passions and ignorance of corporeal existence on the other, they conceive of an enlightened Buddha and unenlightened sentient beings as separate entities. This is truly impossible on the face of it when you start thinking about it. Anyone who is the Buddha, that mind of Buddha occupies all time and space. Everywhere is the Buddha. When you are the Buddha, you are everywhere. Remember the statement of Linello, behold, I am everywhere in the consciousness of God. So if we are everywhere in the consciousness of God, we are in the one mind. We fully embrace and embody the Buddha, and we are embraced by the Buddha. We are embodied by the Buddha. So Huangbo continues, continued indulgence in such dualistic concepts as these will lead to your rebirth life after life, eon upon eon, forever and forever. Let me assure you again that the Buddha dwells not in light, nor sentient beings in darkness, for the truth allows no such distinctions. The Buddha is not mighty, nor sentient beings feeble, for the truth allows no such distinctions. The difference between you and the Buddha is not that the Buddha is in light and you are in darkness, but that you have the equal potential to be the Buddha. The Buddha is not enlightened, nor sentient beings ignorant, for the truth allows no such distinctions. Sentient beings are the Buddha. The Buddha is one with them. They simply may not know it, may not be aware of it, but the Buddha is in you and of you.
For more information on Elizabeth Clare Prophet's prophetic vision and spiritual solutions, call 1-800-245-5445. The preceding program was presented by Summit University, Box 5000, Livingston, Montana, 59047 5000. If you'd like to know more, call this number or write this address. For a free book by Elizabeth Clare Prophet, or for more information about her teachings on the world's major religions, call 1-800-245-5445.